Today's Sunshine Note is titled Endure. For this is a gracious thing, when, mindful of God, one endures sorrow while suffering unjustly. For what credit is it if when you sin and are beaten for it, you endure? But if when you do good and suffer for it, you endure, this is a gracious thing in the sight of God. For to this you have been called, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example so that you might follow in his steps. 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 19 through 21. Terry Bradshaw, a famous quarterback in the National Football League, had a shaky start when he first arrived in Pittsburgh in 1970. With nicknames such as the Blonde Bomber and the Louisiana Rifleman, everyone expected him to do great things. When he didn't have the season he wanted, the crowds turned ugly. Rather than supporting the young player, booing him became a favorite sport in Pittsburgh, Bradshaw reported later. He tells what happened when his mom came to visit for several weeks to encourage him. "It can't be that bad, Terry," she said. Then they went to a hockey game together and were both booed. "They booed my mother," exclaimed Terry. "They were booing her for giving birth to me. How awful is that?" In the passage in 1 Peter, the followers of Christ are told to endure under unjust rulers who persecute them even though they haven't done anything wrong. Peter tells them that Christ too experienced persecution while doing what was right. If we're serious about our faith, doing our best to act as Christ would, we're bound to encounter trouble. Have you ever been booed because of your faith? You're trying to be moral, kind, and a good example, but people don't seem to appreciate your efforts. Or maybe you've stumbled in your walk with God and people noticed. You're supposed to be a Christian and you fell short, so they rub it in your face. But Peter says to endure, and by enduring we honor God. Who knows what may happen when we continue to be a Christian in the midst of persecution. Terry Bradshaw eventually led his team to 4 Super Bowl titles and accomplished other amazing feats in his career, silencing his critics. The Christians in Peter's day continued preaching Christ, and it has impacted countless millions of people. Imagine what God has in store for you. May God bless you today.